to another edition of Boston Sports Nuts.
Woohoo!
I'm Jim Russo. I'm in studio with Ken Berman. Ken?
Hey, Jim. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah.
Ken.
Excited about Sports Nuts.
Yeah. Ken,
Yes.
the last show you revealed some amazing information
Uh-huh.
about the success of this show that I was not aware of.
Oh, okay. Well, I got the stats in, and it's
Do you want to elaborate on that?
sweeping the nation as the hottest podcast / YouTube show in America right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, everybody knows it.
All right, well, we're also glad today. He's not in studio, but he's with us. Mr. Paul Izzo. Paul, how are you?
I'm here. I'm ready to go. I'm looking forward. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get right to it. We had the two Final Fours this weekend. Exciting tournaments in different ways. Ken, let's start with the men. In a really, I thought, intense Final Four. I mean, absolutely ferocious defense was being played by teams. We had a classic in Florida, Auburn, where both teams were just on fire for a while. They, even with the good defense, they were scoring. Then we had, Duke upset on a miracle comeback. And then, of course, Houston, which engineered the miracle comeback, had a comeback against them, and Florida wins the title. What were your impressions of the men's Final Four?
Well, I'm going to go to the final game first and start out there because I found the game to be, although it was close and although there was intensity, I just did not find it to be. I didn't think it was a good game overall. But yes, comeback and ferocious defense, but I found it ugly and sloppy at times, and Division I players unable to handle pressure defense, no smooth offense and things like that. But, obviously an exciting finish, Florida pulling it out, coming back. So that's what I thought. I sort of felt like the tournament was like that a lot of times. So that was my feeling anyway.
Ken, I'm gonna push back on that a little.
Go ahead, Jim.
It wasn't a pretty game.
Was not a pretty game.
It's not a game I want to watch all the time.
No.
However, to me, it was almost like a pitcher's duel in that the defenses were so ferocious. Now, we always say it's a great game if everybody's scoring. So, I get that. I would rather watch that type of game. But that game, the intensity was just off the charts, which made it interesting to me in a different way. Not a way I want to watch every basketball game, but in a different way. I can see where you're coming from, but I found it a fascinating matchup, and, the comeback was incredible. Paul, any want to break the tie
I think
there?
guys, I'm with Ken on this one. I thought that we'll get to the tournament in a minute. I watched most of the Final Four. I watched 2 games and part of the third game. I thought it was, the problem for me, and it's a broader problem that I have with the NCAA tournament. I just don't think we know the players like we used to back in the day.
We don't.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't.
What's that?
We don't. You're right.
A lot of the great players in the league that would be in college are not there. They're in the pros or in the G League somewhere. You don't get to grow up with a player and watch him develop. But leaving that out of it, I agree with Ken. I thought the final game in particular was kind of an ugly basketball game. And I know that when teams struggle to score, our reflex is to say that, that was great defense. And there was. I'm not quarreling with you, Jim. But I think a lot of it was clueless offense. I think the defense for Florida, in my opinion, was not so good that Houston was unable to get even a shot off the last 2 minutes of the game.
Well, I'm exempting the last 2 minutes from my comment.
At some point, you need to at least take a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I'm exempting that from my observation. I'm with you guys on the last 2 minutes.
Does it seem like to me, it seems like the better teams in Division I college basketball, the ones that get, it seems like defense is way ahead of offense right now at the college level.
Well, look, these were two fairly high-scoring teams, but Houston makes its rep on defense. And what is happening to me in the Final Four was these are great athletes. They're still great athletes. They're not NBA players, but they're great athletes.
Yeah.
To me, the court looked incredibly small. I mentioned this on the last show.
Yeah.
And by that I mean that they do not have enough shooters like the NBA teams do to spread the court. Like
Exactly.
they can't play 5 out.
Right.
I'm sorry. What has happened is those two teams, those two coaches, were not afraid to double on a pick and roll, okay? They had no fear. None at all. You double Jason Tatum now, it's a gamble. He's got 4 shooters around him, all right? You double other people, it's a gamble. Not to mention, these guys are smaller. They're point guards. The end of the game, to me, was they couldn't get a shot because they turned it over, or the last sequence, Florida had no fear. It was, okay, blitz the ball handler.
Right.
When he passes, blitz him. If he passes, blitz him. They had no fear that someone was going to make a 3 on them. Now, Houston seemed to be going for a 3.
It was crazy.
Why they were doing that when they were like, 6 for 20, which Florida was about 5 for 20? I don't know. I would have liked to see them spread, drive, kick, or take a layup.
Or run a play.
So, I mean, yeah, that stuck out to me in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I believe.
Sticking on the final for a second. It happened again. You know, we were texting about this during the game, which is at the end of these Final Four title games, so often there's a mistake. You know, we saw it back in the 80s when Michael Jordan hits that shot, the opponent comes down and they throw it back to North Carolina. They throw it to the wrong player. Chris Webber calls timeout he doesn't have.
Right.
Keith Smart makes a shot against Syracuse, and Syracuse lets the clock run down, doesn't call timeout. They would have had 7 or 8 seconds left. Instead, they have 2 seconds left. There's a lot of pressure on these kids at the end.
Yeah.
So part of me wants to say it was an ugly final 2 minutes, but I'm watching it as a father and now a grandfather, and I'm thinking, holy mackerel, these kids are under enormous pressure at the end of these games. And if they can execute anything, it's a miracle.
Well,
They are. And, they're not NBA players who've gone through this time and time again. So, yeah, I think that's a valid point.
yeah. And Paul, to your point, obviously, anybody who's a really good player plays 1 year and then gets drafted. So there's a lot of guys that are left in college ball who aren't the top. We're not always
we're going to
watching
get to that stuff in a minute.
Yeah.
I thought I would concede to you guys not a pretty game to watch.
No.
But the first game, Auburn, Florida, I thought was as good as college basketball gets in this
except
era.
I wanted Auburn.
We know of your, Florida State connection, Ken. I think you might have mentioned. Did you mention it the other day? I can't remember. But anyway,
I can't root for Florida
that
if you
game,
root for Florida State.
They started off on fire. It was 16-14 before you knew it. It might have been 16-14 at the first TV timeout. Teams were on fire. There was great offense.
Yeah.
And we saw on a national stage the emergence of Walter Clayton Jr., who became the first player since Larry Bird to score 30 points in the Elite Eight game and the national semifinal. And, Ken, I hate to bring this up. I know this is a sore spot with you. But this guy also destroyed UConn down the stretch.
Oh, he did. Absolutely. But he had 11 points in the final game, 0 in the first half.
Right. No, we talked about that type of game.
Yep.
And why? They blitzed him every time he had the ball.
Right.
Smartly. So I thought that was a great game. The Duke game was a comeback for the ages. Paul just mentioned mistakes. Paul, if you want to talk about some of those, go ahead. There are a lot of mistakes down the stretch and enabled. And Houston, they didn't quit. And just a phenomenal comeback, which we detailed a little bit on the last show.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of us around here with it, we have a Sharon connection. We know a lot of people from Sharon. We're
Yeah.
kind of rooting for Bruce Pearl and Auburn.
Yep.
It's a nice story, a Massachusetts connection, BC kid. I don't pretend to be an expert in Auburn, but I read a lot about the game. What Florida did that Auburn wasn't used to was they didn't double team Auburn's big guy very much. That
Correct.
guy Groom.
Right.
And as
Correct.
a result, he liked to get the ball and then find the open man. Couldn't do that because
No one was
everybody was
open.
covered.
Yeah.
That gets back to your point, Jim. When the best teams get to the end, they can defend man to man. There aren't a lot of guys that can get an open look and make a big three. Didn't look this up, but I think the 3-point shooting that I saw, Sam texted me at one point and said, "This is like a clang festival."
Right.
Certainly in
I
the
think they had
final.
a microphone on the basket. You could hear bang,
Well, Jim
like the
mentioned
whole
it.
Final Four.
One team I think was 5 for 24, and the other team was 4 for 20, or
In the final.
in the final game.
That game at Auburn, the first semi, they were hitting threes.
But by the way, if we go back a little bit into the tournament, and maybe even a game during the season here, I remember Sam Sports Nuts Izzo texting, college guys never make a shot. He commented how they just can't make a shot, he thought. So,
yeah, so I thought it was a good semifinal.
Yeah.
All right, let's segue to the women's game.
yeah.
Now
Well,
this,
no, hold on. Are we going to do the tournament as a whole? Or are we
yes,
going to go back?
right after the women.
Okay,
Just
okay.
follow the agenda.
which none of us have, Paul. But
But you
Yeah.
do.
Oh, we do.
It was
Oh,
an email.
oh, was it in?
I don't read your
I mean, a
emails.
text.
Oh, that's
Evan
I
has
don't read them. Don't read 'em.
Evan has it.
Who reads them?
Evan has it.
And by the way, if I read it, I wouldn't remember it. So it doesn't
Right.
matter if I didn't read it.
All right. All right. All right. All right, we're going to move on to the women, and we've been kidding Ken about Florida and
Florida State.
Well, that Florida won.
That
is what I'm
Florida
saying.
won.
And
Oh,
that
Can't root for Florida. when
that
you root for Florida State.
Walter Clayton Jr. took down UConn there at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But Ken, amazing accomplishment, and I'm just going to kick it to you.
The women, the
Yes.
UConn women's team, it's just an unbelievable program, is what I think. I mean, 12th NCAA championship under Gino Auriemma. To me, is the greatest recruiter of all time in women's college basketball, and has to go down as one of the greatest coaches too. Just a phenomenal program. Great win. They beat this in the semifinal. They won the semifinal game by 34, and the final game by 23. And they were the only number 2 seed that made it into the Final Four.
Yeah. I thought that was a legitimate big three in women's college basketball.
Right.
Paige Beckers, I'm sorry, Aziz Fudd, and the freshman, Sarah Strong. That
Sarah
was a
Strong.
legitimate big three.
Yeah.
And, I think we don't have to, but it was a shame Juju Watkins got hurt.
Yeah,
That's why they
I agree.
were a 2 seed.
Right.
USC was the number 1 seed in their bracket.
Yep.
Personally, I think UConn would have beat them anyway.
Yeah, the way they were playing, yeah.
That big three was just extraordinary. Kudos to all of them, because that particular group has gone through some,
Tough times.
with
Yeah.
injuries
Yep.
and, so kudos to them. It's their 12th title since 1995.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Incredible. Paul, you got
Any thoughts on UConn women, or the UConn? How about the women's tournament, Paul? Whatever.
Well, I think in general, yes, it's a great story that UConn has been so dominant. They're the from our day when we were young, the UCLA of modern contemporary women's college basketball. But I'm sorry, I can't get excited about 34-point victories, 23-point victories. The entire women's tournament needs to be looked at. The blowouts are like something that is almost unimaginable. The one-sidedness of roughly half the games, and I'm going to follow Jim's agenda and not get too deep into it. But watching the Final Four, and I did watch it, I don't know how UConn wasn't the number 1 seed. they dominated that Final Four.
Yeah. There is one thing. There is such a disparity in women's Division I basketball between the half a dozen, 10 great teams and almost everybody else. I mean, there was a couple of 50, 60-point blowouts, I think, in the tournament.
Yeah, but still, I look at UConn and I see all the former players that went to the game.
Yeah, that was nice.
I think that was really good. Very kind of Celtic-like in a way.
Yeah.
And just the way they played, just an extraordinary program. You guys are right. I thought too many blowouts. Even the final game, I started switching because
they were going to win.
Team up 30 points. I mean, and I don't root for either one of them. Although, UConn semi-local, I'm glad they won. So, all right, we're going to move on. I just want to give one last stat before we move on.
Okay.
And this is a tribute to Florida, the men's national champion.
Yep.
This team, okay, in the semifinals, they were down 9.
I know.
In the finals, down 12.
Mm-hmm.
In the Elite 8, they were down 10. They were 7-4 during the season when they were losing going into the second half. That's my final note. A little tribute to Florida. They are the true comeback kids, and it was nice to see Al Horford in the stands. So at that game.
Yeah.
And Ken, I know you're UConn, but Billy Donovan was there because he got in the Hall of Fame, Providence College alumni, 1987. Okay. Now,
Billy
we've
D.
just covered the on-court. Let's talk about the off-court. We're going to start with Paul on this. Paul, what do you feel? Obviously a lot of changes, especially since we were growing up. What do you feel about the current state of college basketball?
This tournament lacked a lot of the Cinderella stories.
Correct.
No 14 seed won, no 15 seed won, no 16 seed won a game. Between the 8 teams at the 12 and 13 seeding, only 2 of the 8 won their game, and none of them went very far. There was no Creighton. There was no, the stories we've had in recent years. Yeah. And in the first round, roughly half, 15 of the 32 games were not even remotely competitive. We had disparities of 28 points, margins of victory, 13 points, 25 points, 35 points. Some of them were outrageously big. And I think that I think what college basketball is right now is not what it's going to be in 5 years. This business of players transferring year after year after year after year, Clayton transferred. Players are having good seasons and then leaving because they can get more money. So they're in a place where they actually like it, but then they leave that place. I believe it's going to affect the national audience. It's never going to affect the kids at the school because the kids at the school are rooting for the laundry, right? They're going to the game. They're there for 4 years, 5 years, and they're going to go to those games and have a wonderful time. But for somebody like me that's rooted, say, for URI and Syracuse my whole life, every year I look at the roster. Every year I have to read about guys leaving. Every year I have to read about guys coming. I don't know who they are. The coaches are moving around more than ever. Veteran coaches are retiring because they're fed up with NIL. Look, I think we all love college basketball. I think you guys love it more than I do. But I'm not sure what I'm rooting for. I'm not only rooting for laundry now, I'm rooting for temporary laundry. I'm rooting for like a 1-year laundry. And I just think it's
1 year laundry.
I don't know. I used to love college basketball when it wasn't that important. When Providence College played Assumption in 1971, I was like on the edge of my seat. I didn't have to see UCLA play Houston. And I think what colleges are going to miss are the regional, local rivalries that get built up over time. The 80s being the classic example with Chris Mullin. We knew all the guys on all the Big East teams. That's all gone now.
Right.
So
it is gone.
and it's not just college basketball; it's college football too. So, I think it's headed somewhere. I just don't think where it is now is where it's going to be in 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having trouble the last couple of years or so, like staying involved during the regular season of college basketball now, where it used to be years ago. I was really into it more, and I looked forward to watching games at night. And if you want to go back to where Paul's talking about, like the Big East at its prime, like he said, you knew the players on each team. They were there for 4 years. The Patrick Ewings and all that. That was unbelievable. We'll never get that back again. The question is, to me, is the NIL good? Is the transfer portal good? Or is it just good for the individual kid?
Yeah, I think everything you guys are saying is true, and before I get into this, Paul was right about not a lot of upset. The biggest upset was at the AMP, formerly the Dunk. McNeese State, number 12 seed, beat a 5.
Yeah.
Okay, as far as what you guys are saying, all true, except we were all living under an illusion, and that's what it was. I'm sorry, it was an illusion. It was all this, no, seriously.
Yeah.
All this money being made by universities, colleges, and coaches. And these players were being recruited and getting nothing but the promise of a college degree. I'm sorry. When there is all this money going on, that's not fair. They couldn't even wear the sneakers they wanted in those days. The coaches signed the sneaker contract and got all the money. So if you've got a star college player, let's say Cooper Flagg, in the old days, his coach, John Shire, would sign with a big sneaker company and get all the money because Cooper Flagg is the best player in the country. Number 2, all the rules were skewed against the players, okay? You couldn't transfer without sitting out a year. Oh, but Rick Pitino can go from school to school.
Yeah, that was
and
wrong.
all these guys can go from school. They can recruit a class and then say, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So,
that was wrong.
Right. So what is happening is that people took this to court. Ed O'Bannon, UCLA.
Yep.
They don't have the right to use my name, image, and likeness. I do, meaning him. And he won. So when they went to the courts, and by the way, there is a lawsuit right now by former Arizona State player named House that there's a proposed settlement in front of a judge, the 6 power conferences he sued for using his name, image, and likeness, and he got nothing. And there's a proposed settlement before the judge where players will be paid directly and there will be a kind of a salary cap. I have no idea what it's going to be in 5 years. I just know a lot of things they were doing was so skewed against these players, and they were using them. I'm sorry. They were using them.
Okay.
And another thing, the NBA and the Players Union is no better because there's no reason Cooper Flagg should have been at Duke this year.
Oh, well, they got to
Other than and Adam Silver would have liked him to be in the NBA.
Right.
But the Players Union doesn't want to give up the jobs.
Right.
Okay? Cooper Flagg is 18 years old. He should have every right to go to the NBA. He can play in the NBA. Kobe did it. Garnett did it. LeBron did it. Darryl Dawkins did it. There's no reason he shouldn't go. And by the way, Paul was talking about plain assumption. I'm fine if that happens. Let's get over this. The NCAA has to have the best players. It's unfair if they don't stay for. I'm fine watching. When the Big East contracted, me and our good friend TG were advocating for that for years. We don't belong in the Big East against these football schools. What's happened is reality has taken over. I'll be the first to admit it's not as much fun. I think Paul's concerns are valid about the future of the sport. They may kill themselves with this. But when you start taking the law into and players woke up,
Well,
that's what happened.
Well, I agree with all that, but my question is the NIL good? Is the transfer portal good for college basketball?
But what do you mean college basketball? It's great for the player. It's not good for the coach.
Well, I'm talking the fan.
The fan? Look, we're fans of sports, but I'm not fans of taking away people's legal rights.
No.
That name, image, and likeness is that players. That never should have been the schools. Never. I have this discussion with friends of mine.
So tell me this: if let's just say we do all that, and I'm with you. I think if a kid is good enough to come out of high school and go to the NBA, I'm all for that. I hate this 1 year and done thing.
Yeah.
And if that means to me that the other kids that do go play stay there for 4 years and stay with the team more often
Right.
I'm all for that.
Right. But the NIL, as Paul said, encourages kids to leave because they can get more money. But my point is this. You two guys did a stellar job. I'm going to throw some, what does Scal call it these days and others? Flowers. That's the new term, I guess, flowers. I'm going to throw some flowers. You two guys did a stellar job for I don't know how many years announcing high school basketball.
Thank you.
You did. You were great. I helped you out a minimal amount, but you were great. Well, I say you were great.
Thank you.
Those games were great. I go to high school
Yeah.
games.
Well, they were great to us because Paul and I watched the same kids play for 3-4 years.
Well, that's where you'll get it.
I hope that's what. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want
hope
to
that's
respond.
Okay.
Can I
if that
respond to
happens-
Jim?
Yeah.
Can I respond to Jim?
Yeah.
Look, I understand Jim is
go.
taking Jim's taking a very high road there about player rights, and I get it. And I'm also I understand that. I did intellectual property law for many years, and I can understand the idea that a person should own their name, image, and likeness. But nobody wants to watch Cooper Flagg play on a playground. They watch Cooper Flagg because he's wearing that Duke uniform. They watch, Chris Mullen because he's wearing that St. John's uniform. The teams, the schools are the draw, not the players. Just as many people will watch Duke next year as watch them this year when Cooper Flagg goes on to the, NBA or wherever he goes. So this idea that, the players were completely screwed all those years, all the great players of the NBA history that we know and love, from Bill Russell to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, grew up in the old system, and they all did just fine. Okay, the fact that schools are making a lot of money with college basketball does create a difficult question, which is how do you leave all the players out of it? But to go from completely screwing the players to making a sport that's unwatchable that's why I'm saying in 10 years, it wouldn't surprise me if the networks come to the college and say, our ratings are down. People don't want to watch this. These are guns for hire. And that's not why people get excited about college basketball. They get excited because there's competitiveness, there's an attachment to these kids. And if there's no attachment, what if the Celtics change their roster every year? I don't know that I'd root for them.
Still rooting for the Celtics.
I'm not.
For the Celtics.
I'm
surprised.
I'm not going to root for the
rooting for the
Celtics just because they would.
Patriots
If the roster changed every year and we had no love for the players as they grew and developed, I find that hard
NBA
to
rosters
believe.
do change every year. The Celtics
Not
are
100%.
that they
What
brought
I'm
back the
saying is
whole-
there has to
And
be
by the
some
way-
kind of middle ground, guys, between the system they have now, where a guy can jump from team to team to team. It's making a mockery of the fact that he plays for a college. You can't transfer to 4 different colleges
Well,
like that.
We're the only country in the world where players are groomed in colleges. Nobody at Canada has junior hockey. Soccer doesn't do this around the world. Nobody does this. And we just accept it because it's been
The way it's been.
the way it's been. Look, if they come up with some kind of mutual agreement, I'm fine with that. But I just want the players to have their rights that they were denied for so long. And let me tell you something, Paul. You're talking about the school. 9 out of 10 recruits go for the coach. Okay, well, 7 out of 10. All right, some of the bigger schools get, I'm going to go to Duke.
Right.
But you can count them on one hand. They go for the coach. And when that coach left, they're stuck. And if they wanted to leave, you got to sit out. Well, wait a minute. He's coaching at New Mexico. Well, why is he special? Look, I'm willing to let it go. it is what it is. I'm fine with competitive basketball, whether it's at the high school level. College is not going to be Bill Walton versus David Thompson. I'm fine with that because they're in the NBA. So we'll see.
Yeah. And by the way, this is another whole different thing that I probably, I don't know if we go down there, but to say the kids got nothing, let's just say a kid did go to, say, Duke for 4 years. That's right now, that's like $300,000 plus.
Okay. Two things. One, you're right. I shouldn't have said nothing. They got something. Two, the star players want no part of a college degree right now.
I understand. But
Bill Walton wanted that degree. I think Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar
but back
did.
then they knew they didn't have a choice either.
And they didn't have a choice. Cooper Flagg, sorry. He's not going back to school to get his degree. They are there to go to the show, as they say in baseball, and they are there to go to the NBA, and he would be there this year if he was allowed to.
And by the way, in the women's side of it, a lot of the young ladies are staying in college
because of NIL.
And they can make more money than going to the WNBA.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Okay. I think we've got all the views out on that. Let's go. Speaking of basketball, we'll do it fairly quickly because it will change, but we talked about this last time. We're coming to near the NBA season, and, the matchups are starting to take place, and I have before me a sample bracket. Let me put my reading glasses on. And let's start, of course, we're not going to go through all this. We want to get to another topic, but let's start, of course, with the Celtics. The Celtics is the number 2 seed, clinched. They will play. They will know on Tuesday or Wednesday night, okay, who they're going to play, unlike last year when you're the number 1 seed. So they will play right now either the Magic, the 7, or the Hawks. The other 2 play-in teams are the Bulls at 9 and the Heat at 10. Do either of you guys, out of those 4 teams who are pretty much, I think they're locked into the play-in, do you guys have a preference for the Celtics on that, those 4 teams that you can think off the top of your head?
Preference. I think they should beat any one of them. Sorry, Paul.
Paul, you want to go?
I think we crush every one of those teams.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think I think the first round, if the Celtics struggle in the first round against everybody, that's a bad sign. Against anybody, that's a bad sign.
I agree. I think, if you had to pick, you'd probably pick the Bulls, but
yeah,
the Magic are missing Jalen Suggs is key for them. Paul hit the nail on the head. If the Celtics really struggle in that round, we'll know we're in trouble. Okay, we know the others. The Knicks need one more winner, and Indiana lost to finish third after last night. Great win for the Celtics.
Yeah.
Knicks have a tough schedule. Do we as Celtics fans, we're 4-0 against the Knicks, the Celtics. The other options would be to play the Bucks or the Pistons. Do we have a preference there in the second round?
Pistons.
Really?
Just they lack experience.
Okay.
And the Bucks have, Giannis, who at any time can just kill you.
Yeah. All
like
right.
you said, you want the best player. He could be the best player on the court.
Correct.
We do not want to play the Bucks if we can play the Knicks. The Knicks, we're in their head. I'm sorry. If the Celtics win all that game the other night against the Knicks was my favorite Celtic game of the year.
Really?
The gym, the Madison Square Garden was packed with all the phony fans sitting in the front row, Roger Goodell, actors, actresses, people that couldn't tell, Bill Bradley from, Bradley's, the old department store. I mean, they don't know anything. And they're all sitting there. Carmelo's there. And that was a delicious, delightful, that was like a hot fudge sundae win for the Celtics. And the fact that,
I agree.
Jim, I'm going to give you credit. You texted this morning. The fact that Missoula went all out to win that game must have really stuck in Tom Thibodeau's craw. Like, what are you doing to me? You're playing Tatum 48 minutes. You got KP out there at the end of the game. You guys are diving for balls, leaping for balls. Oh, what are you doing? We got to win this game. What are you doing to me on my home court? Come on.
Well said. Well said. Actually, the other team we could play, by the way, is the Pacers. They worry me a little.
A little bit more
Their
than
fast pace worries me, but actually that would be the alternative to the Knicks. I misspoke. So the Pacers, they would worry me a little because they're fast breaking teams.
Yeah.
So well said, Paul. Well said.
Yeah.
Bradley's Department Store gets a shout out on Boston Sports Nuts. Well said again. Okay, just briefly because we got to get to our final topic. Looking at the bracket in the West, which could change by the hour, by the time we leave this studio,
Right.
It's extraordinary. It's just a basketball fan's, dream. So, like right now, we have a 3-6 matchup of what we like to call Newman, the Lakers, because Newman represents pure evil in a sports sense, not a real sense. And the Golden State Warriors in round 1.
That would be good.
That's Steph, Draymond and Jimmy Butler versus LeBron and Luka Doncic. Okay, round 1. We'd also have, in the 4-5 game, we would have Denver playing in that game.
The newly constructed Denver Nuggets.
Against the red-hot L.A. Clippers.
Yeah, they're hot. Yeah.
And Kawhi Leonard, who I believe is a top 5 NBA player when he plays, when he's healthy, is back.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary. And, of course, we have the Rockets.
By the way, if he plays in the playoffs, I'll be surprised. I don't know why. I know he's healthy right now, but for some reason, the playoffs are going to come and he's going to have to something happen to him. I don't know. I hope not.
So without going into all of this, is there anything you guys want to see in the West?
Well, yeah, this is the irony of the West. The West is so scary that if you ask me what team do I not want to play, I don't want to play whoever wins the West.
Right.
That's why I don't want to play.
Okay,
because whoever wins the West has got to be some combination of the Lakers, the Warriors, OKC, the Nuggets. I mean, you gotta get through hellfire and brimstone to be the NBA final out of the West, and that's going to be a good team. So whoever wins the West, that's the team that I don't want to play.
Right. And if you ask me who I want to see lose in the West in the first round, would be the Lakers.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I'm sorry. They are actually playing well.
Yep.
They beat OKC at OKC they were up at times almost 30 points in that game. Yeah. And then last night they were tied in the fourth quarter with them at home when Doncic got thrown out of the game. This is starting to scare me, and they need to go as soon as possible.
Yeah, out.
Before we get to our last topic, I just want to mention 2 NBA notes that I think are worth mentioning. The first is the Nuggets firing Brendan Malone, who's a championship coach. The GM will not come back. The team has,
having a good season.
They're going into the playoffs. They have the best player in the world. They have Aaron Gordon. They have Jamal Murray. They have Michael Porter Jr., and we got unbelievable.
Wow.
So, just that. And the second thing I want to mention is closer to home, and that is as great as well said by Paul, that win last night. The Jaylen Brown thing is starting to worry me. He played 22 minutes, which got him over the 20-minute threshold.
Right.
He now needs 2 out of the last 3 games because he has the 15-minute exceptions. He can play 15. Leaving aside whether he should be playing or not for a second, this is starting to bother me. The national announcers noticed it. There was not a locally televised game last night. Right. The great Kevin Holland and Reggie Miller, great team, noticed it last night.
Yeah, he didn't look the same. He hasn't looked the same. He had a 31-point game a few games back, but he just hasn't looked the same. Yeah, that's scary. We all have said the Celtics at full strength. Paul always said tough to beat them 4 games.
Yeah. So, okay, we're going to go to our last topic for the night, and that is, or the day, that is the Masters, which we all are fans of since we were young guys, and the Masters will be played. Today is the par 3 contest. Yeah. Tomorrow, probably Jack, Gary, and Tom will hit the ceremonial first shots, and we'll be away at the Masters. So just any thoughts on the Masters from you guys, on the state of golf, on LIV, and also one of the big issues, and Paul being, and I being huge music fans as well as Ken, the Masters song was not used in the promo this year by, was it Kenny? No, Dave Loggins. Unbelievable. But anyway, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, the biggest story this year in the Masters is they may not be using that theme music, which I sometimes play on a loop when I'm playing golf to try to channel the whole vibe.
My inner masters.
I think when we watch the Masters, we watch the course. That's kind of what the whole point of it is.
Yeah.
It's probably the only golf course that I know pretty well just from watching it on TV.
Yeah.
You have the stretch there, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever it is, that's tough. And then you have the little hole with the bridge, and then you have the famous finishing holes. It's that kind of experience to watch it. And when we were kids and well into our 30s and 40s, we could only watch the last, say, 8 holes. Now they have 1 to 18 coverage.
Yeah.
So, the names that are being thrown around are all the big guys: Morikawa, McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler, John Rahm. Those are the names that are all the favorites. I'm going to take the field. Whether it's a guy like Hovland or somebody who nobody's really betting on, because that's the way it seems to have gone in recent years. Like when everybody says this is Rory McIlroy's year. Well, not if he shoots 75 in round one.
Right.
You got to go out there. How many times has it been said you can't lose you can lose the Masters before you win it. You go out and you shoot 5 over, you're going to have a tough time. So, ask me after Thursday who I think is going to win, because it all comes down to Thursday to some degree.
Yeah, Rory's always going to be a big story in this tournament.
Yeah.
I read the article this morning, the obligatory article, because he won the other 3 majors. And
Hasn't won
and it looked like he was going to win this tournament as a young golfer, and he didn't that year. And this is Arnold Palmer trying to win the PGA. This is Tom Watson trying to win the PGA. All the times to get the career Grand Slam, they couldn't do it.
Right.
I think there's only 5 golfers that have done it. So he's always a big story. Scotty Scheffler obviously has been the number 1 player for a while now. But yeah, it's the course. I mean,
Yeah.
with 18-hole coverage, I know almost every hole now.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't tell you 4 holes on most of the tournaments. Maybe Pebble Beach, maybe St. Andrews, but I know almost every hole. I mean, it's just a great, and the whole live thing. It's become like tennis, as some people predicted, that the 4 majors are the only place where the best players in the world are all going to play together. And I think from live, the guy to watch, I'm not a fan of live. I don't watch it. I don't like it. But the guy to watch, who's one of the most popular golfers in the world, as well stated on that series Full Swing, Season 3, is Bryson DeChambeau. Fans love Bryson DeChambeau because he's done a lot of social media to change his image. It's extraordinary what he's done. Well worth watching the Full Swing episode on that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm psyched.
We just love the Masters for the look. I just find it an exciting golf tournament to watch. It could be some nobody up at the. I don't care. I love watching it. I love looking at the holes, like you guys said. It just has a certain excitement and intensity to it. I find the Masters and the Ryder Cup to be my 2 favorite
Me too.
golf tournaments. But yeah, the Masters, the look, the holes, there's something about it that's just different than all other tournaments.
You get the expanded coverage.
Yeah.
And actually,
CBS doesn't really pay to show it. It's sort of a prestige thing for them.
Right.
And they get, only 4 minutes of commercials an hour, which, I mean,
I was gonna
if you
say
watch
that.
anything
That's
on
also
NBC,
great.
you're lucky if you get 4 minutes of coverage on some of the games they cover.
Right.
I was going to say that the limited commercial breaks don't hurt your enjoyment of watching that.
It's so
And actually,
it's so cool.
I think they got an extra hour this year of coverage. They're starting both Saturday and Sunday at 2, I think.
Really?
So they might have got an extra hour on at least Saturday. So maybe Sunday, at least Sunday, I should say. So that's great. Really looking forward to it.
But I guess Bryson DeChambeau is very popular.
He is.
I don't know why. I don't know with who. I don't know how. Maybe he does social media that I never see because I don't really check it that often.
That's why, Ken. Watch this episode. It's extraordinary.
I will, but I don't care about him. I don't care about him. I don't care about Rahm. I don't care about Koepka. I don't care about Garcia. I don't care about any of those guys. I find the Masters would be great without. I don't care if they played ever again. If I'm the PGA, I am not negotiating with LIV. They don't need them. Nobody watches them.
Ken, keep in mind, the Masters are their own entity.
I know.
They are not covered by the PGA
right,
Tour.
I know. I'm just saying if they didn't play and the Masters decided to not let them play, I wouldn't care.
I would strongly not want that. I like the fact the Masters is keeping their same standards. They're not giving any points to LIV players. You've got to have won the Masters or get it. Like Joaquin Niemann is getting an exemption because he's played great at LIV. Masters will decide this.
Yep.
Other tournaments are just using their qualifying things to get LIV. And frankly, I don't like LIV. I've said to you and maybe Paul, I don't know where the demand was for 54-hole tournaments. I don't know where the demand was for players to wear shorts. I don't know where the demand was for team golf. I don't know where the demand was for music. I don't know where all this came from.
Right.
Nobody said it. So I'm not a fan of LIV. Do I like seeing those players in the Masters? Yes, I do, because I like seeing the best. And let me tell you, when Ryder Cup times come, Keegan Bradley has said he's taken the best players, and he's a local guy. Hats off to Keegan because we need DeChambeau.
All right, guys, I'm going to give you some numbers, and I want you to guess what these numbers represent real quick. 69, 60, 61, 44, 52, 35, 44, 56, and 38.
Your last golf rounds.
38 makes me think of Channel 30.
Those are margins of victory.
I don't even have a guess.
Those are margins of victory in the opening round of the women's basketball tournament. If that tournament wants to be real, they got to go to 32 teams.
Wow.
Yeah, good
All right,
point.
Here's my last thing. Incredible. Here's my last thing. Ken, you and I talked about a topic the other day that I think is near and dear to P. Izzo's heart.
Okay.
So what I want to do right now is give our compatriot and good friend Paul Izzo, because he unfortunately could not make our last show, a chance to weigh in on an issue that's a little bit dated now, but may rear its head.
Still topical.
Yeah, and may rear its head in the future. So, Paul, I know this is very close to you. Please weigh in on the Joe Milton trade, which both of us strongly opposed on our last show.
Okay, so I am opposed to the Joe Milton trade for the following reason. Number one, they drafted him in the 6th round, and he showed something. Okay? Now, if they thought he couldn't play, he's a 6th-round pick. Why did they draft him? Okay? They drafted him because they thought he had potential. What did he do? He played in a regular season game and showed potential. He threw the ball accurately. He scrambled. He called good audibles. He showed himself to be a serviceable player. Did he play against second-string defenders in Buffalo? Yes, he did. But those guys also were playing for their jobs, trying to impress their coaches, and he showed them up. Also, a lot of these guys that are picked late in the draft that play in the preseason show nothing. People say, oh, that was like a preseason game. True. But a lot of preseason quarterbacks show nothing and they get cut. He completed 75% of his passes, including some passes that were as good as we've ever seen in Gillette Stadium. So I don't understand why you would draft this guy. He would then show something and then you get rid of him. Keep him around. Now, if they did it because it was bothering Drake May and it sent the wrong signal to the team, then I don't understand football, because I thought competition and making people nervous about their jobs was what football was all about, period. That's why Belichick drafted Jimmy Garoppolo, because it was going to light a little fire under Brady. And what did Brady do? He won a Super Bowl that year, 2014, won another one in 16, almost won one in 15. So I don't get the whole Milton thing. I'm mad that you brought it up because I had gotten over it. I had grieved. I'd gone through all 7 stages. But if he
Nice
turns
job,
out
Jim.
to be a great player, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah, those, without repeating what
Yeah.
Ken and I said the last show, those are similar thoughts. So,
Yeah.
But I felt an obligation to give P. Izzo a chance since he was one of the first to tout. All right. Okay, that's going to do it. Oh, okay. That is going to do it for this. Well, we like to, he's not here.
Yeah, we're thinking of Paul all the
Absolutely.
time. He
All
wasn't
right.
here.
That's going to do it for this edition of Boston Sports Nuts.
Woohoo.
I'm Jim Russo along with Ken Berman and Paul Izzo, and we'll see you next time. And the NBA playoffs will probably be underway, Ken.
That's right.
Thank you for watching Boston Sports Nuts. You can find all of our episodes available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. For more information, go to westwoodmediacenter.tv or follow Boston Sports Nuts on Facebook, Instagram, and X.